When it comes to Windows phones, HTC is a driving force. It has the largest market share in the Windows mobile device arena, and in this review you'll find out why that is. It's LP from Techno Buffalo, and welcome to my review of the HD2. So, in this review, I'll be taking HTC's new flagship device through the same course of tests and benchmark I recently put the Touch Pro 2 and Nokia N97 through. Everything from multitasking tests to gaming and video codecs benchmarking using CorePlayer. I'll also be taking the HD2 on the road to see how its built-in GPS works with the Copilot software included on the device. We'll be taking an in-depth look at the HTC's new Sense user interface that HTC's been working on for a couple of years now. HTC Sense is a tightly knit UI with extensive social network integration, and it's something HTC is very proud of. So you'll be hearing my thoughts and opinions about the new user interface. Before we get started, let's take a quick look at what's included with the device. I should probably mention that the box and all the packaging materials are eco-friendly and disposable, which is kinda cool. So inside the box we have your operation manuals and promotional coupons, a very firm feeling leather pouch for the device, a 2GB micro SD card and adapter, your standard HTC charger, a USB sync cable, and a set of earphones with a 3.5mm plug. A decent set of accessories, but let's get to the device itself. The HD2 is a successor to the Touch HD, which was a relative success from last year. At its launch, the Touch HD wielded the largest screen of any smartphone, and it's nice to see that the HD2 carries on that tradition. I mean, look at this thing, it's huge. The box it came in was not lying. It's much larger than the screen on the iPhone, it dwarfs both the screens on the Diamond 2 and the Touch Pro 2. And it's not only screen size that has been upped, the screen is now capacitive touchscreen, meaning that it now registers thermal and infrared signals instead of physical pressure like old resistive screens. Capacitive screens don't need to flex, so they can be made out of harder materials like glass. The HD2 is a glass screen that has been coated with an anti-smudge surface that has very little friction when you run your finger across it. It gathers very little grease that is easy to wipe off. The difference in friction is very noticeable when comparing to the plastic resistive screens on the Diamond 2 and Touch Pro 2, so sliding your finger on the screen feels a lot more natural. The glass also contributes to the rigidness of the device. The HD2 is one of the more, if not the most well-built devices I've had in my hands. It's a bit hefty, but the weight contributes to the feeling of quality, and the device can definitely take a good beating. The device is very streamlined, and the back cover of the device is a nice dark piece of brushed metal. And the rest of the back is covered by a black hardened rubber material, which gives the device a nice grip to it. While we're here, we notice the 5-megapixel camera, and I have to point out that the lens is actually raised quite high above the frame. And for some reason it has very sharp edges. Minor design flaw, but nothing too serious. Best not to slide the HD2 on scratch-prone surfaces, and if you for some reason wear spandex pants, I recommend not putting the HD2 in your pocket. And I also recommend, if you're a guy, don't wear pants made out of spandex. Under the back cover is a 1230 mAh battery, and as you can see the SIM card slot is now in a place where you don't have to detach the battery, which is a refreshing change. The micro SD slot is also in a very accessible place. Even though the HD2 looks massive from the front, it's actually very thin. It's less than half the width of the Touch Pro 2, and it's significantly thinner than the Diamond 2. Thanks to the thinness, it doesn't feel too big in the hand, but I'm pretty sure that this is as big as mobile devices will get. Well, unless the old briefcase phones come back into fashion. You never know. My old Mobira 450 was pretty hot back in the day. But truthfully, human hands ain't getting any bigger, so I'm pretty sure this is as big as it gets. Scratch that, I just received the next generation iPhone, and it's pretty big. It almost feels like it's made out of foam. Anyway, the device is very streamlined and it has very few mechanical buttons. On the front, the answer and end call key, and holding down the end call key acts as a power button as well. We also have the home screen button, Windows button, and back buttons. The buttons do feel solid, but they have a little shake to them, but it isn't too bad. On the side we have the up and down volume keys, and that's about it for the moving parts on the device. It's not only the screen that has been given an update. The chipset and processor has been given a significant update. The 528MHz processor on predecessing HTC models has been replaced by a 1GHz Snapdragon processor. And if you ask me, the hardware running Windows mobile devices haven't always done justice to the operating system. But let's find out if that has changed with almost double the clock rate. As you can see, the HD2 blows away the Touch Pro 2 in startup time, so it's off to a good start. So here we are in the Sense UI. HTC Sense is a custom user interface that runs on top of Windows Mobile 6.5. The old interface Touchful 3D2 is now gone, but the new UI definitely bears a keen resemblance to the old Touchflow 3D. I am glad that the new UI isn't a complete redo, because the Touchflow 3D 2 was and still is one of the most appealing things about the previous series of devices. As you can see, the home screen has changed a bit. On top, we still have the clock and the calendar. New to the home screen is the local weather icon. We also notice that the weather animations can now be part of the home screen. The new animations are pretty impressive. But if you're annoyed by the weather animations, you can easily turn them off and just take a look outside the window to see that it's raining. You can customize your home screen with animated wallpapers or just plain old JPEGs. A very smart addition to the home screen are the quick link slots, where you can add your favorite programs, contacts, and links to your favorite websites. It's simply a great addition to the home screen because there's always going to be tasks that need be done more often than others. Adding and subtracting links is simple and fast. As you can see, the capacitive screen combined with a Snapdragon processor translates into a much more fluid user experience. There's no drop in frame rate, no screen tearing, and no sudden halts you experience on previous models. It can almost keep up with my lightning fast fingers, but not quite. Moving through the UI is still impressively fast, and the capacitive touchscreen needs very little pressure to register the actions. You barely need to touch the screen. Single-hand navigation is still very possible, and the large screen makes it very suitable for flicking around even with fat thumbs like mine. The Sense UI is an evolution from the Touchflow 3D 2 interface. Let's take a quick look at the tabs. So the People's tab has now got a very functional update. You no longer need to flick through your contacts, which I too thought was a bit unnecessary. Here you can see a list of my closest buddies. And when I, for example, run my finger over Arnold here, I'm shown all the previous interactions, calls, messages, and emails. It's very convenient to keep track of what's been discussed. The People's tab has a very elegant but simple design. And most importantly, it's very functional. And if there's something strange in the neighborhood, I know who to call. There's very little change to the message and email tabs. Pretty basic stuff. And here's another place where you can see the Snapdragon processor doing its job. Animations are smooth and flicking between messages and emails is super fast. And while we're here, let's type a quick message to show off the typing capabilities of the new capacitive screen. As I mentioned, capacitive screens register on thermal signals, so you can't use a stylus or your fingernails to operate the device. Resistive screens are a bit more accurate, but the capacitive screen on the HD2 is very intuitive, you barely ever miss your mark. Even though I'm a strictly keyboard guy, I have to say that the big screen combined with capacitive technology and the XT9 predictive text software makes the HD2 excellent for typing. The XT9 seems to work so well that you barely need to know how to spell to punch out your words.